From Greater Sandton and beyond, get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 203. It's week 28 of 2025, and I'm Alexander Leipner, and a special welcome to you if you're a regular listener, and an extra special welcome to you if you're listening for the very first time, if it's on air or online, anywhere in Johannesburg or Pretoria, or even across South Africa, maybe even across the world. Well, wherever you are, I'm happy to report that all has been rather dry in Sandton land. I wouldn't say well, but dry. Are you still without water? It's been a week of juggling water woes. I think I counted, almost 72 hours without a drop of water. And, you know, it starts getting a little bit messy when you can't do the dishes, you can't wash clothing, you can't flush toilets, you can't wash your hands. I mean, we know the woes. I mean, are you still without water? Has everyone got water back yet, or is it still a bit of a thing? But always good to know friends in other suburbs. Nothing like visiting friends in Northcliffe for a shower and a shampoo and maybe something to eat. Goodness, the things we have to do in Greater Sandton, in between work, running businesses, running families, all these things. Had a good start to the week, though, and managed to curb some of the water fun. Stayed over at a penthouse in a new development in Sandton. We're going to be putting up some information up on the website and also the social media channels if you want to have a look at what a 6.5 million rand penthouse looks like in Sandton, and lots of fun. Interesting job, never dull. Vincenzo piloting the mixing desk and all things audio engineering for the hour, and dare I forget, a very happy 91st birthday to my dear father. May you remain fit, healthy, happy, and loved by all. And I managed to take him and the family for a breakfast at the Whippet in Linden. Stunning little spot, great service, good food. I must say it's very recommended. We had a lovely little birthday celebration there at 91. Special. So who are we talking to this week? What are we talking about this week? Well, in a bit, I'll be taking a look at the state of our water system in larger parts of Sandton. Why do we keep having these water outages? Take a listen. Let's see if we can get some answers. After that, I connect with SA Rugby to chat about a brand new store. It's a global first that has opened in Sandton City. Then we reconnect with our regular entertainment commentator to talk about a new movie release this past weekend that's been 65 million years in the making. And finally, there's a summit in Sandton this week focused on all things residential and property, and I'll be finding out a little bit more for all of us. This and more is coming up, and I would also like to hear from you. So if you'd like to get in touch, you can do so by sending through your questions, comments, feedback on whatever channel you're most comfortable with. There's email, editor@sandtontimes.co.za. There's social media at Sandton Times. There's the website, www.sandtontimes.co.za. And then there is also the WhatsApp line, which is 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. That's the exclusive Sandton Times WhatsApp number. So if you want to send through your text messages, voice notes, videos, whatever it is that you feel pressing to send, you can use that WhatsApp line. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the podcast online, do so. Join the community, and you can do so freely at no charge on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, AfroPods, Podcast Party, and so many more. So make sure that you do that and like and share.
Show some love.
Subscribe, share,
Leave a review and rating for the Sandton Times Hour
on your favorite podcast app now.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour
Water. It's something many of us take for granted until the taps run dry, and for residents in Sandton and surrounding suburbs, that's exactly what they've been dealing with this past week. And despite ongoing repairs to critical infrastructure, uncertainty still surrounds the root cause of the ongoing supply issues. And to help us make sense of what's really happening beneath the surface and what needs to be done to safeguard South Africa's water future, we're joined by Dr. Ferrial Adam, Executive Director of WaterCAN and a long-standing voice for water rights, transparency and accountability. So Dr. Ferrial Adam, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour, and let's dive into the topic at hand. We spoke almost a year ago. Where is the water situation and where are we at a year later?
So, not surprisingly, we're still very much where we were previously. I think the one good thing is that Rand Water has been doing quite a bit of maintenance. I think that Joburg Water has good plans to do better work, but until they don't get the budget that they need, those plans are literally plans on paper. So until we get, or Joburg Water gets the funding to fix where we experience the impacts of what's going on, the ordinary citizens, the blockages, the leaks, the no water for days. Until we get the budget increased, that's what we're going to be experiencing. So it's not going to go away anytime soon.
I mean, this was sort of the profound moment this week, is that on the 1st of July, one of the things that went up was the cost of water. And that same week, nobody got water. I mean, larger parts of Sandton were left without water. So essentially paying more for something that doesn't even exist.
So I think that, the issue of paying more is that I think we need to understand the city's budget. What are they doing? If the services were good and we could see things were happening, they talk about ring fencing the money for water and electricity, but I'm not seeing it in practice. So to be honest, if I was told we're going to increase the amount and it's going to be a stepped tariff, so the more you use, the more you pay, that makes sense for me. So let's do that. But then show me that money is actually going to go to upgrade our system, maintain our system, so that in 2 to 3 years, it's going to be impeccable. But people are rightfully irritated when you increase, but there's no movement to show that they're actually going to fix things.
Well, this is the question, right? I mean, is this just a matter of throwing more money at a problem? Because it seems like that doesn't necessarily seem to be the only issue here. I mean, we've had this big hole of Sandton, which is on Catherine Street and Pretoria Avenue, which has become a trilogy. I mean, it's been going on forever. Not only has it impacted the situation around water supply, but it's also impacted businesses around that particular construction site, let's call it that.
Yeah.
But even this past week without water, we saw 5-star hotels in Sandton with water tankers parked in the parking lot. We had coffee shops issuing notices on Instagram saying, sorry, we're unable to continue trading because the water and the backup supplies and whatever other plan C, D, and E have run out and we cannot continue to operate. I mean, this is affecting the economy and the GDP of Greater Sandton and of course Johannesburg and the rest.
Completely. But it's not only that, there were hospitals and clinics that didn't have water. How do you have a health institution that is all about health, that you don't have proper water for sanitation, for cleaning your hands and all of that? That's the thing about water. It cuts across all the sectors. It cuts across education, health, economy, food. Everything runs on water and we kind of forget that. But let me just take you, in terms of you saying, is this just throwing more money to the problem? The challenge is we know what is wrong. We do. We know that pipes are old and they need to be replaced. We know that our reservoirs are leaking. So instead of now putting money on new developments, like in Midrand or wherever, we need to focus on the areas that need that upgrade, that need the reservoirs to be fixed. So it does need money. Until we get more money, those things can't be fixed. But the important question here, or the important point is, it's not just throwing money loosely. It's not like just throwing the money in the sky. It must be controlled, it must be ring-fenced, and they must account for it. They've recently taken a big loan from the African Development Bank, the city of Johannesburg. The city of Johannesburg's taken a loan last year from the French government, and the year before that from the World Bank Partner Organization. So they've been taking loans every year. They need to account for it. And that is the worry.
Do you think that this is potentially a tipping point when it comes to citizens? And you were saying how water cuts across every sector, business, residential, every income group, however you want to slice and dice society. And the fact that you can't replace water like you can replace electricity, we just get a backup, I don't know, battery or a solar panel or whatever. Do you think this could be a tipping point in the way that Santonites and Greater Johannesburg residents are going to start thinking about administration and how this entire thing is being managed?
I do hope that it's not a tipping point, but I do hope that people do start thinking about that. I mean, we're going into a local government election, end of 2026-27. And let's be honest, I don't see any party that is able to give me the confidence I need that could take us out of the nonsense we are in right now. Every single party in the city of Johannesburg is partly responsible for the mess we're in right now, whatever the case may be. Whether it's calling for a mayor to be removed or calling for a speaker to be removed, Johannesburg, which is supposed to be the economic hub and the heart of South Africa, the municipality, the metropolitan, has been in disarray for about 8 years, if not longer. And political parties playing their games and their politics is just creating and making it worse. I'm sorry, that is my view. So that is going to happen, but I think in terms of what you're saying of businesses and it makes sense, hospitals or private hospitals or Santonites as you call them, my worry is that more and more people are going to try and jippy the system to create their own private water and sanitation. And that may sound great, but it isn't, because it does create other problems. So you adding to the problem. Let me give you an example. There's an area where the developer, a property developer, put in their kind of, for their approvals and saying that they will build 30 units. For example, they will use a sanitation package plant, a water treatment plant for so many units. The next thing you know, it's not 30, it's 200. So then that system can't deal with the amount of water and sanitation that is needed to be dealt with. You have overflow into the rivers, and then who do you hold accountable? So that's been a struggle. That is the reality. So I'm a bit cautious about now, this government's not doing it, we're losing business, and I understand that completely. But get involved. Let's move away from the WhatsApp complaining. Let's get involved to hold government accountable. Because the more the parties are playing games in council, the harder it is going to be to fix Joburg.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying it's also not just pointing fingers at administration. There's also private business that is also taking chances and impacting the infrastructure that is meant, as you say, for 23 houses is now meant for 200 houses, which is completely unrealistic.
Exactly. But we need a collective response. We can't leave it to business alone, because everyone shouts at business when things go wrong, right? Sandton cannot look at itself as a section on its own without looking at the broader water systems we have in South Africa or in Johannesburg. We are a water scarce country. So everything we do within development now has to be smart. It's what we did with energy. Remember, companies were coming up with solar power. They were looking at having green buildings that would use less energy. We need to do the same around water. We need that kind of innovation and thinking that needs to be. It's not just about having the same amount of water. It's how do I reduce my water usage? I mean, I think I often make people feel worse than providing solutions. But I think from where I'm coming from, it's one step at a time. And we are pushing. We are pushing back at civil society. And it's why we have a lot more information if you think about 2 years ago where things were happening and we didn't have information. Civil society and business lobby are getting stronger and getting the information we need.
Well, there you have it, a shared responsibility when it comes to the security of our water, not only in larger parts of Sandton, but across the country. And the voice of Dr. Ferrial Adam, Executive Director of WaterCAN. Dr. Adam, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break. And more of the Sandton Times Hour after this.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
So it's not every day that a national treasure opens up a shop, literally, and in a first for South African sport, the Springboks now have their very own flagship store right here in the heart of Sandton. And from official Nike replica jerseys to a brand new lifestyle range that takes the green and gold from the stadium to the streets, fans finally have a home for all things Bokke. To unpack the thinking behind this bold new retail play and what it means for the future of the Springbok brand, we're joined by the man steering the communications and commercial direction of SA Rugby, Andy Colquhoun, General Manager of Communications and all things commercial. Andy, it's good to have you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Great to be with you, Alexander.
Andy, this is a big day for South African rugby fans. What does the opening of the first official Springbok store mean for the brand and its supporters?
I suppose the most fundamental thing is that it does something that should have been done a very long time ago. It's amazing to think, isn't it, Alexander, that a visitor comes to South Africa and says, I want to go to the Springbok store. I want to take a little piece of South Africa back home. Where do I go? And they would have been met by blank faces by everybody sitting in our offices at South African Rugby. So we've filled a gap, answered a need, and began to roll out what we hope will become a chain of Springbok stores across the country, so that the visitor as well as the local supporter has somewhere where they can go and they can get the clothing they want, both the technical apparel provided by Nike and then a new Springboks off-field range for everywhere from the office to the bride.
Andy, such a valid point made. I mean, you go to Paris, there's a Paris Saint-Germain store. You go to Madrid, there's a Real Madrid store. You come to South Africa, you've filled the gap. There's no Springbok store. And when you travel anywhere in the world and you find yourself at an international airport and then suddenly you see a green and gold jersey like I did the other day in Zurich, you know there's a fellow South African and a fellow Springbok supporter.
It's a really special day for us. We've achieved, the team has achieved many great things in the last few years, winning World Cups. And of course, this isn't as big as winning a World Cup, but for SA Rugby, it's a real landmark day. We saw from 2019 onwards the hunger in the market for green and gold apparel related to the Springboks, apparel for people to express themselves as South Africans, to wear around the world, as you say. And there really wasn't anything. There were lots of imitators and counterfeiters popping up on social media. It's so easy now, isn't it, to create an e-commerce channel, so easy to print a T-shirt and put something on. There was a clear need, an opportunity for South Africa to build out our brand. If you're a Springbok follower, we've got 6 home tests a year. You can wear your Nike jersey on a Friday as part of Bok Friday. But what do you do in the rest of the week if you want to show your support for the Springboks? So we hope we've created a range that will provide an opportunity for the person just going about their normal business life to go into a meeting or go out shopping or whatever, just wearing something that's got that little touch of Springbok about them as well, so they can express their love for their team and their nation.
So I'm assuming this is part of that new off-field clothing line called Springboks, which is a little bit different from the usual supporter gear.
Absolutely, yeah. Nike is our licensee. They produce a sort of a technical apparel as well as an off-field range that uses our official mark, which is the leaping bok with the word Springboks underneath it. And that's fantastic, and we're pushing that out as hard as we can. But then if on a Monday morning you've got a meeting or you want to go out somewhere and you don't want to wear a green jersey, but you want to show you're a Springbok supporter, we've got a new range of apparel which is different. We've been modifying the mark as well, so you see the Springbok represented in multiple different colours, in multiple different iterations, in multiple different designs, some of which you would never associate with the Springboks. But we wanted to create a whole new sort of thought process around the Springboks to extend the brand, to expand the longevity, expand the longevity of the brand in people's lives, and give them something they can wear with pride 7 days a week.
You mentioned the counterfeiting and obviously the Me Too outfits that have been flying around the internet. Did the interest and the take-up of these particular items sort of spur on the urgency to bring something to life that, like you say, should have possibly been brought to life much sooner?
Indeed, it should, yes. We set the goal at the start of 2024 as the Executive Council of SA Rugby to create this new range to fill that market and to open a store. But we've actually managed to achieve it very, very quickly, which is a surprise to us. We set the target for 2027, the World Cup in Australia. We expect another explosion of interest around Springbok branded apparel. but we've got there much quicker than we might have hoped to, as you say, counter the counterfeiters, if you like. I think a lot of people see social media, they see something that's got a Springbok logo on or that's green and gold and think it's official product, and 9 times out of 10 it's not. But we're now in this position where through our new retail channel, which is springbokretail.com, and it'll be there on social media as well, on Instagram and TikTok, people can really get close to the brand and buy the official product.
What can people expect from the store experience? I mean, you mentioned obviously the official gear, then there's obviously the lifestyle gear that you're launching. Will this also be the kind of place where you'll have regular visits by the Boks themselves, where fans will get to meet their heroes in green and gold, sort of on an odd monthly basis?
We can't promise that because the Springboks are usually quite busy.
Yeah.
they're either playing in green and gold, or they're in Japan, or they're playing for their clubs. But obviously, I mean, last night when we opened, we had 3 of the Springboks in attendance, and that will happen from time to time. I think it's a different shopping experience. When you visit it, you'll see it's got a mini museum kind of feel. You'll see some artifacts from Springbok history. There's digital screens playing out game footage as well as other Springbok related material. So I think we hope that the buyers will tell us that we've created an experience that's just beyond a normal shopping experience, and they can go and get just that little bit closer to the team and the brand.
Well, there you have it. If you want to get your Bok gear, head down to Sandton City and check out the new store. And Andy Colquhoun, General Manager of Communications and Commercial, chatting about that new store in Sandton City. Details will be up on the Sandton Times website as well. And Andy, thanks for making the time to join us.
Pleasure, Alexander. Thanks for inviting me.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Taking you into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipner, and if there's anything that you heard on the show that you wanted to get some more info on, well, don't despair. Hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za, and get all the details there. There's some additional reading, links, breakdowns, whatever you need, you can have a look on the website, and we always try and upload it as soon as possible once we've gotten all the details ourselves, and you can get it there. Just check the right show. And then also you can connect with us on the social media accounts at Sandton Times, and also use the WhatsApp line 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866, and feel free to send through your voice notes, text messages and more, and that's the exclusive Sandton Times WhatsApp number. Make use of it. Right now, as we always do every week, we turn to all things entertainment, and it's great to reconnect with our regular commentator, Tat Wolfen. And Tat, good to have you on the show again.
Hi, Alex. Always good to be here.
Well, Tat, this week's been an interesting one. I went to go to the movies for a change. Seems to be, I'm on a bit of a roll at the moment, and I managed to go watch the latest installment of the Jurassic franchise. It used to be called Jurassic Park, then it turned to Jurassic World. And there's been quite a few of these. And I was quite surprised to hear that there was another Jurassic World coming out, because I hadn't heard anything about it up until a few weeks ago.
Alex, I'd like to register my appreciation that you actually went in my stead to see this movie, because I'm so done with prequels, sequels, reimaginings, post-imaginings, pre-imaginings. I'm done.
Yeah.
If there's an original idea in Hollywood, could it please put its hand up? Well, actually, there was one recently, Sharp Corner, and of course, I've reviewed that on the website on sandtontimes.co.za.
Yeah.
But please, Alex, would you like to share your pain with us?
Well, look, I mean, let's maybe get into it. So it's called Jurassic World Rebirth. It's the latest and perhaps maybe an unnecessary rebirth of the movie franchise, 3 years after the Dominion release came out. It tries to revive this whole dinosaur franchise with a new island, some new faces on screen, the usual pharmaceutical greed, and a couple of failed dinosaur experiments. It's directed by Gareth Edwards, which is quite remarkable. Steven Spielberg is still involved as the executive producer. It stars Scarlett Johansson and a myriad of fairly well-known Hollywood actors, and you think, okay, well, they've got a pretty good formula together, and they're coming off the back of a very successful movie franchise, but yet it leaves us wanting. I mean, if we have a quick look at the plot line of this entire movie, it's set on a new island that nobody had known about up until this point. It's a sort of a sister island to the original Jurassic Park island, run by the notorious InGen organization that was responsible for the first park. And naturally, it all goes sideways because this park was the park where they sort of basically developed more extreme hybrid dinosaurs that were going to entertain people of the original park more than just the normal dinosaurs. And as the story goes, they need to get some DNA from these dinosaurs for a miracle drug. And it's the usual screaming, shouting, running, and absolute chaos. And humans versus dinosaurs on this remote island. So it kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what the movie gives us. And Tat, I really suspect that this would have probably had you throwing your popcorn up in the air and crying.
Yes, it most certainly would have done. I was done with the Jurassic franchise after seeing the third one. You know, the first one was revolutionary of its sort. You know, it was really... eye-popping, and although we didn't have the CGI that we have today and they used animatronics and stuff like that, the first one was marvelous, and there's very few people that I think who would disagree with that. The second one, you know, the fact that I don't remember it means probably that I neither hated it nor loved it. You know, it was probably just like there. But the third one, I was thinking, guys, enough. Let's pack it up and go home. So when they recently started now with this Jurassic World and stuff, I did indeed throw my popcorn in the air. And I've heard, for example, I mean, you mentioned that these dinosaurs are sort of hybrids. So they're not even real dinosaurs anymore. You know, they're not the dinosaurs that we know actually existed. So now this is going into like Sharknado territory. You know what I mean? It's going to this freaky... silly territory. Whereas the first Jurassic Park was kind of rooted in reality. You know, they found the DNA trapped in this amber and they reignited the DNA, you know, brought it to life. So there was sort of some scientific, you know, sci-fi dimension to it, you know. Now they've brought in these like weird freaks, which belongs in B-movie territory as far as I'm concerned. And apparently they've also inserted some arbitrary family story to give it some kind of human interest.
Yeah,
yes.
it is a bit strange. They have this parallel story running with sort of another cast of lead actors that are playing, you know, the usual family and kids that are running away from dinosaurs, alongside the mercenaries who are trying to get the DNA and trying to survive this horrendous island with all these strange dinosaur additions. But it is, like you said earlier on, it's sort of running on this nostalgia fume, hoping that people who enjoyed the original 1993 Jurassic Park, and what I liked in terms of what you said as well, I feel like there were a lot of dignified exits that this franchise could have made. There was a point where you could have said, cool, if they stop it now, it'll be remembered as, you know, this great series of movies that, you know, kind of had a beginning and an end. But, you know, when it starts going into that Fast and the Furious territory where you think, how much more can they really do?
Mission Impossible or whatever, yeah.
You know,
the Marvel movie. It's like,
when is it going to end?
Yeah, it's just a case of enough already. The original Jurassic Park was a milestone in local cinema in that it was the first movie to be shown in DTS, because back then in 93, you know, we still had 35mm film instead of digital projection in cinemas. And DTS was a digital sound system that worked, that you had a code on the edge of the 35mm film that synchronized the projector to a digital disc player that gave you the digital sound, which is really interesting because the very, very first sound movies ever were projectors that were synchronized to old 78 records. So it was a kind of a modern updating of that. But because the first digital sound system we had in this country was in 1992 when Disney's Aladdin came out. And Ster-Kinekor had Dolby Digital systems only, exclusively originally. And then New Metro was the first chain to come out with DTS. So I also have that kind of technical connection to the original Jurassic Park.
And I know that somewhere Jeff Goldblum is raising an eyebrow because chaos didn't just find a way, it signed a franchise extension. And I feel like we're not going to see the last of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World dinosaurs. I have a feeling they will probably return again for a few more movies, much to our despair. I mean, from my side, if you're looking for some escapism, if you really are a dinosaur fan and this might be something where you feel like I don't have to think about anything else in the world, you might want to go watch this. Otherwise, if you're expecting big things, might leave you wanting a little bit.
Stay at home next to your heater and watch something on streaming. I just wanted to add, I'm sure Mr. Spielberg is not complaining about these ongoing sequels because he goes in there as executive producer. It really means that he makes more rents, okay, or more dollars. And I don't think he has any real input on the movie.
Well, we're going to see how this movie does in South Africa over the coming weeks. But Tat, it's always good to connect with you again, and we'll catch up again next week.
Cool. Look forward to it.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
So cities grow and skylines shift. The question isn't just where we live, but how we live. And the Reside Summit 2025 is back this July at the Sandton Convention Centre, bringing together Africa's leading minds in real estate, urban development, policy, and innovation under the powerful theme Transforming Spaces, Enriching Lives. And now it's in its third year, the summit has become the go-to platform for shaping the future of residential living on the continent, and anything from sustainable building practices to smart cities, student housing, retirement living, it's all on the table and will all be discussed. Joining me on the show shortly is Debbie Tagg, who's part of this year's dynamic planning committee and making sure that all these topics flow accordingly as Africa's housing landscape evolves and Reside Summit kicks into gear. And Debbie Tagg, chair of the Reside Summit, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Debbie, just to sort of kick this open for people who are not in the property space, who are not in any of the fields that I've just highlighted, how would you describe this particular summit when it comes to sort of residential or where we live?
Well, I think it's got a little something for everybody, whether you're just looking to invest in property, you're coming in as a sort of a very new investor, or you play at the very high end with the big guns and the big developers. I think as you were just talking about where Sandton Times is based, you just think about the housing development that you've seen from CBD Sandton all the way to almost Centurion, the affordable housing estates that are going up all over the place. So Reside pretty much represents all of those developers, but at the same time, there's that interesting middle person man that is investing in Airbnbs and multiple properties. So they may not be considered what we call a large developer, but they're definitely doing their bit in social housing or student accommodation. So it's been a really interesting journey because up until 3 years ago, there was no event that addressed the entire value chain of residential development in South Africa, which I was quite blown away when we were brought this concept and the privilege of serving chairs the last 3 years. So we have a very meaningful role that we can play. I think if I can put it down to nuts and bolts, if you think about available housing, even social housing, how that affects someone from an economic level, it's so prevalent even in Joburg that the person that's coming, maybe domestic work or whatever, where do they live? How much are they spending on transport just to get to their job day in and day out because there isn't affordable housing close to where they work? So, if you just take that kind of as one of the areas around housing, never mind the big investment side of it as well, it's been a very interesting journey. And as I said, I think Reside has created an environment where whether you are a one-man show or a big show, there's something for you to engage with the associations, with City of Joburg, with municipalities, you name it, because it also can be a very frustrating process, development.
Yeah, no, sure. And interesting that you point that out, because obviously it is a very broad spectrum. You're saying from entry-level housing all the way through to our luxury estates and some of the award-winning estates that we have in South Africa.
Yes.
If we look at sort of the more entry-level housing, how much does public transport and also the lack of planning or the people taking it into their own hands to just set up shop wherever there's an open piece of land, how much does that play a factor in deciding on how this low income housing comes to fruition?
I think a very important one, I mean, it's one of the areas we do address. We look at informal settlements. I mean, obviously, many of the government entities at a local municipal level have a formal way of even upskilling those informal settlements. Interesting enough, it's actually one of our categories in the awards that we have. So we look at social housing, informal settlements, even another interesting area that's really also exploding is backyard renting. So there's a lot of movement and cohesiveness happening where there's formalizing around how we do this better. And of course, what we see as Reside, government tries, but there does constantly seem to be this broken bridge between developers and kind of infrastructure. So there's definitely that objective to look at how we can have better private-public partnerships, because to be frank, government can't do it on their own. Local municipalities are cash-strapped. So I think the more that you can reduce the red tape and create a really good pipeline of partnerships around, and that's also what we do celebrate at Reside as well, is where you've got these kind of mixed use projects that is social housing, even retail's come into it, whatever the case, but private sector's got involved, our investors have got involved, and governments come to the party. And I think that kind of answers your question. Very, very important.
You've done this for 3 years. What have been sort of the main thematics that have come out of the past 2 years' summits? And what do you foresee being sort of the hot topic for 2025?
Again, if I go to the high end, it depends what the market's doing. Are people buying houses? Are they selling? Aren't they? So, I mean, that's depending on what our economy is doing, that can be very volatile. So we see that from the banking investment perspective. I would say something that, and it's kind of the community side of what we do, or the industry side. One thing that has blown my mind right in the beginning, there's almost 95 industry bodies, associations, agencies that are stakeholders in this value chain. And there was no one place that they were going. So I think there's a lot of duplication of effort or just limited resources. So the objective around Reside, and that has kind of been one of the big pushes, and we've seen that grow even right into the launch. There's a launch of an alliance body called the Southern African Housing Residential Alliance that represents all these bodies, just so that we can start to actually, as you say, people taking things into their own hands, but they're with limited resource. So if we bring that together, we can do a lot more. And that's, I think, one of the big shifts. First year, that's what we saw. Everyone came to the first event and said, this is what we need. So we went, okay, this is the right thing. The other big, what the industry's just taken two hands hold of and really, really celebrated is actually celebrating the good stories in development, from government developments, social housing, right up to the luxury estates. And I think the awards is doing something very meaningful in that and keeping the narrative a lot more positive. And then probably to the third area, I'd say, is just one of the partners that we work with. Well, not the only, we have human settlements, we have local governments, SOLGA. This year, we're actually being hosted by the city of Joburg. So mayor and entities will be there presenting. So I think it's also for us that opportunity for private developers to have a face-to-face with someone sitting in government, which just doesn't seem to happen in this space as easily.
You touched on the open day, which I think is a new element that you've brought into the lineup. So up until now, very much for people who are very much into development, but now with the open day opening up to, I suppose, anybody and everybody interested in property or in development. Is that right?
Yeah, so more for the property practitioners, for our real estate agents. Our partners and exhibitors have an offering and solutions across the board. So the decision was made to open up the event to visitors. So never mind the partners and exhibitors that you can go and visit by being at the event on the open day. There's no cost to attend. However, it's better if you do pre-register. But also we've got a property theatre, which literally has like Johannesburg Housing Company, City of Joburg, right there that you can access. I know, property practitioners often complain about, I can't get answers from PPRA or from CSAS, etc. So all of those industry agencies and government agencies are there making themselves available, presenting workshops. We also, one of the areas we focus on is also short-term rentals. We've got workshops on that as well. So if you come through, I touched on a little bit on the Airbnb side. We know that it's a booming market. So one of our partners is also the South African Short-Term Rental Association. So we try and support their members as well to be able to network and find valuable solutions through the Reside Summit.
Well, the Reside Summit is happening from the 9th to 10th of July at the Sandton Convention Centre. We'll put up all the details on the Sandton Times website. So if you want to get some more information, you can do that. And Debbie Tagg, Chair of the Reside Summit, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you this week.
Likewise, and thank you so much. And one thing I'll highlight, on the 10th, we also have a pop-up investment day. So we've literally got more junior investors that say, look, I've got this project, it's 20 units, they're looking for investments. So there'll be some interesting opportunities that will be presented as well on the open day. So come through and see us there.
Brilliant. Debbie, thank you so much for making time to be on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you for having us.
Great look at the time, and yes, it's time to wrap up the Sandton Times Hour for another week. And while I do so, let me remind you to feel free to send through your questions and comments to editor@sandtontimes.co.za, on social media @Sandton Times, on the website www.sandtontimes.co.za, or use the WhatsApp line 084 Sandton, that's 084 726 3866 for your voice notes, text messages, and more. As always, don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast as well on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and many other leading digital audio platforms, and join the growing community there. A very special thanks to all my guests who made the time to be on the show this week, as well as the team behind the scenes who make sure this happens every single week. And of course, a very special thank you to you for listening, and God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the Sandton Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.